My name is Eleazar Gonzalez. I work for Lincoln University Cooperative Extension City. And in the panel, this panel can to happen because a collaboration with other partners. We have other people involved, like the state of Missouri with Alan Freeman, who is here in this panel too. We have 3 organizations or 3 farmers who belong to different organizations. One of them doesn't have an organization. And also we had the Lincoln University Hemp Institute to be involved with you and present what we had for you here at Lincoln. First, we will have a presentation. I will present, as I say at the beginning, we collect a survey from a sample of 37 Missouri hemp producers. The population size of this survey was 186 farmers. That is the population we get from the state of Missouri as those farmers who receive a permit to grow hemp in Missouri. And from that, we send an email with the survey to all this size of population. And from this population, we receive feedback from 37 producers. We represent around 24% of the population who get involved in hemp this past season. Next, we will tell who we are here in Lincoln University. Then we will have Alan Freeman from the Missouri Hemp Industrial Program to present about what is going on right now on the hemp industry, updates on regulations, and what is next for this coming season. And then at the end, we will have a forum where we will bring our concerns and our perspectives about what's the direction of what we should do as a hemp industry in Missouri from the voice of farmers. We had Rick Cricklow, who is a farmer in central Missouri. We had Taylor Morgan, who is farmer and processor here in the South region, the same way as Trey Wilson. Let's start with the presentation now. This is the summary of this presentation for today. First, we will be talking about the background information, the people in the survey, some data about sociodemographic information of the sample of these 37. And also, we will present their perspective, their feedback about their technical, market, financial, and other challenges they have concerning the first production season, collected from the survey. Okay, let's start with the first slide. Is about the demographic of this sample. As you can see in this sample, most farmers who respond to the survey are very much people who have level of education. And it seems like also a very high number of people with college degrees, but a little bit more than beyond college graduate. The people age, most of farmers are older than 51 years old, like those who respond to the survey. There is a population of farmers who are in the early 40s, but most of them are farmers who has been or has developed the consciousness about what to produce and why to produce So that is very interesting, very good data. In gender category, we had like, there are involved. Right here, we had 6 females responding to the survey. This case, I may miss one of them, 7. The related to ethnicity group, we had most of them are, there is one person from Asian American group, and other people who didn't respond, but no, they were not Latino, no African American. There are veterans in this group. There are 6, and disability status, there are 2 people with that. So, relating to the demographic of the FAR as a production unit, we have most farmers are new farmers. They have been in the industry use for 2 years or less. So this is very interesting information too, because that means there should be a lot of holes and a lot of need for learning here. So we found that in the survey responded for 13 farmers who have been in the industry for more than 10 years. Regarding the farm size, we found out there is a good population who are small farmers. Like you're talking about 19, half of the sample here. And these farmers who own more than 101 acres, who are the most of them, are also the farmers who has more tillable land in production. Just to give you one idea, we have very disproportional size of farming. Like there are farmers who report to own 4,000 acres, other farmers who say I only had 1 acre. So we have these kind of different sizes. There are many of them who own around the 1,000 acres. To grow hemp, let's see, from this size of farm and from this tillable land, but you can see how many acres were allocated to grow hemp. And you see most of farmers are they are taking the precaution. That is good, because most of them start growing in less than an acre. We are having here 15 farmers, just not risking too much. And based on the responses too, many of the responses were considered as a learning experience in other category. There are a few farmers who grow more than 16 acres of hemp. We had 2 farmers reported here. As we know, the state of Missouri provides a permit to grow hemp, and in that permit, the farmer specifies how many acres he is going to produce hemp. It's happened that it doesn't reflect at the end. The farmer decides how many he's going to produce, and he doesn't want to take the risk. He is not going to produce. There are farmers who reported they get the permit, but they didn't grow any hemp. So now, let's see about the technical issues we found in this first sample. We found that most farmers are considered themselves sustainable producers. I mean, they don't use chemical inputs or conventional production systems like tilling or other systems. Like there are only a very few population of farmers, let's say 5 farmers, they report to use conventional production methods, and 6 farmers, right, reported to be 32 no, this is mixing methods, organic production, 16.2%. And a good number of farmers do mixing methods. So they combine conventional and sustainable practices to grow the production. So this is kind of give you an idea where farmers are in the production system. Now, regarding where they grow their hemp in this year, we are talking that we asked a question about what proportion of hemp do you grow in indoor facilities? And most of them don't grow hemp in indoor facilities, but a good size do. We are talking about 21%, 21.6% grow from 1 to 25% in indoor facilities. 100%, what corresponds to 16.2%, that means they grow everything indoor, in greenhouses, food houses, and that is a good number, considering the first production season. Now, let's see another technical concern here is about what are the main diseases found on hemp among these sample farmers. And most of them are the more frequently found was botrytis or mold in flower. There are other frequent, like powdery mildew and also stunting plant. That is how they respond to the more frequent issues with sicknesses. Now, let's see what happened with pests. In the case of pests, the main one was called earworm, grasshoppers. They are the more frequent pests found on hemp in this past season. There are other ones listed there that farmers reported to be found in their operation. The more significant ones will be the core earworm and the grasshoppers. Now let's go to the market. What's going on in the market? First thing, like one of the questions to know is the farmer has a good projection what he is producing, was to ask, do you operate the hemp production following a business plan? And that is the response. Most of them don't do it. 50.8% don't follow a business plan in this production season. And now, if you don't follow a business plan, you will think, okay, let's see what happens then when you produce. Where are you going to sell your product? That's the response. It seems like they don't have a contract to sell the product. So 70.4% don't have a contract, and 21.6% they had a contract with the market or a processor or somebody who is going to get the product out of the farm. Now, related to the financial categories, we also request or ask them what was the main production cost they face in this production season. Most of these farmers in this sample responded to be related to operating costs. There is a second category that is harvesting and processing, but because many of them are not in that stage yet, so that is why reflect input and operation a bit higher. And it's expected that as farmers, as many of them has mentioned, they would like to go to the process of processing, so that will change. Continuing with financial situation in the hemp production operations, we asked them to what extent they feel like supported by financial institutions. Like, is there a way they feel confident to get involved with loans, and to what extent they feel the financial institutions are supporting it? And as you can see, there are many concerns about the financial support to grow hemp here in Missouri. And most of these farmers, some of the answer neutral, a little bit of them very confident. Only a producer feel confident about finding or support to grow hemp the financial side. Now, let's see what are the main challenges now. The question that can on board is COVID-19 an issue to grow hemp right now? Well, farmers don't think that COVID is an issue. Most of them don't think that. There is a few of them who respond that that was an issue, and that's why they didn't grow hemp, or they didn't grow what they want to grow. But at the end, most of them responded not to be an issue. What about the responses on return on investment that connect with the financial and the market part? As you can see here, most farmers are thinking they are going to break even. They break even. 35.1% respond that they will go, or they will not make any money, but they will not lose. 24, and a large number of them, 9 actually, responded to have a negative rate of return on the investment they did. So that is where this area, these blue areas here, is where we need to work more to how we are going to create this or reverse this return on investment. But we need to get connected with 41%, over 41% return on investment expected by a few farmers here, like 7. So that may tell you something. We need to cross-tabulate information data to explain why these responses come this way. And then we may be able to help to give ideas to these farmers who are expecting a negative rate of return. Oh, I was passing. Now, what are the challenges now? Some of the challenges, we can classify them on 3 categories: financial, markets, and technical. And most of farmers responded to be more connected with a technical channel, regardless that they don't have a financial connection with institutions to grow hemp. However, as you can see, this is a new industry. There are many new farmers. As you can see the response at the beginning, most of farmers are new. They had 2 years or less in the industry. So that is expected. They don't have these technical skills to grow hemp at this time, but eventually it's going up. They are going to gain it. Now, that was my presentation, just a summary of what we had so far. Next will be, we had in Lincoln University, we had a group of people who are able to help you to control for pests and to control for plant diseases. And also we had genetics experts. So right now in this panel, we may have here Dr. Patel. Are you here, Dr. Patel?
Yes, I am here.
Can you present yourself to the farmers? Tell them how you can help them.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. How is everybody doing?
Very good.
Great. Okay, good to hear that. I'm Jaimin Patel here at Lincoln University in Jefferson City, and I'm a plant pathologist and assistant professor with Lincoln University. Dr. Gonzalez has mentioned, at least in one slide, about plant diseases, about actually hemp diseases. And you have seen certain diseases that farmers responded to, for example, powdery mildew, Pithium diseases, and few other. Dr. Gonzalez, may I request you to pull up that
Yes.
slide?
Yes.
So I can provide some idea to attendees. Oh, great. Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. So here we can see that botrytis is the #1 concern, or at least farmers see that as a major problem. This disease particularly appears at flowering stage. So, if you are looking at producing CBD or looking to produce seeds, this disease would be important to protect your plant because this will destroy flower production and seed fertilization or seed production process. So you have to protect your plant at flowering stage. The second important disease here is powdery mildew. And this disease generally appears when plant is um, like at adult stage, or they are like a bussy with lots of leaves, or if you are growing hemp in the greenhouse conditions, because this particular pathogen, which is a fungi, uh, which causes powdery mildew, it does not like sunlight. So whenever it has a bussy growth, the older leaves will get shaded and pathogen will thrive. So as soon as you have a bussy growth for your hemp, you need to think how you can protect your plant, if particularly if you realize that it has started to spread. Okay, you should not wait until it spread to most hemp plant. Another disease we see here is Pithium root rot or wilt, or you can say damping off. This disease particularly is more important when it is at seedling stage, or it is just coming out of ground. Um, when when the pathogen infects the hemp at seedling stage, it will either kill the plant or it will keep the plant stunted. Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, and everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. Next part of this panel will be the presentation from Alan Freeman from the state of Missouri. State of Missouri program, hemp program. Alan, are you around there?
Yes, I am, Dr. Gonzalez. Thank you very much.
We do now.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well today. Just want to give you a brief overview of what the program's up to with regards to the industrial hemp program in the state of Missouri. So as you're aware, the program staff is still just Aaron Casey Campbell and myself, and the best email contact or the best contact for us is hempprogram@mda.mo.gov. So if you have questions, by all means, get a hold of us that way. So as a reminder here, our regulatory authority still is over viable industrial hemp only. So viable industrial hemp is going to be any plant material that's living or growing, such as seeds or live plant material, and is includes but not limited to clones, cuttings, and seedlings. The industrial hemp, of course, is cannabis sativa L with the pre-harvest compliance test not exceeding 0.3% total THC. We still do not regulate non-viable industrial hemp, non-viable being plant materials that are no longer able to live or grow. And we don't have processor, handler, extractor licenses, anything along those lines. Under Missouri statute, it's considered a publicly marketable product once it's been tested compliant and harvested. A couple of updates for you as to how things are going along here. We've recently updated the program website. We're trying to keep that up to date as we go throughout it. So if folks want to keep track of what's going on our website, they should have up-to-date information. Just another reminder that you need to read any correspondence from the program office. If you're a registered operator, you need to read the emails or mails that are coming out to us. And then we are planning to start a series this year of periodic reminders, kind of a best management practices thing at different times throughout the year to help remind producers when different reporting requirements are established. Again, if you have any questions with that, you can always contact our, Aaron or myself, or through the hemp program at mda.mo.gov email address. For licensing, applications has continued to be open year round. We have started sending out annual renewal notices. They're going to be mailed about 60 days prior to your renewal date. An example would be any applications that were approved in January of last year. They would have an expiration date of January 31st, and we mailed letters on November 30th of last year. So February 28th renewals were mailed out the end of December, and then we'll be issuing the March renewals at the end of January then. Just as a reminder on sourcing your seed and propagules, they can be purchased from any Missouri agriculture hemp propagule and seed permit holder. They can be purchased from a supplier with a hemp license in another state or territory, and then suppliers have been approved by the USDA for international import. So there should be a link on our not on approved operations page, but on our additional resources page for that USDA link, I believe. We do not have an approved varieties list, and we do not have a certified seed requirement. So those are just things to keep in mind. Probably some common questions we get. We have a planting report this year. Last year it was called a lot identification form, and it was a little confusing from time to time because we had the lot identification form and then the lot report. So we renamed the lot identification form to planting report. We've got that. It's due within 30 days of planting. Then there is an Excel version and a PDF version available on the registered producers page. And Aaron has put together a guide on basically a how-to guide on how to fill that out. There's also the reporting for Farm Service Agency. Producers must report their planted acres to Farm Service Agency by the date they provided. The last year's notification for FSA was supposed to be August 15th. We haven't heard what the date will be this year yet. And then this year, in order to help keep track of things as we go along, we're requesting producers provide us a no plant notification by August 1st. We have to keep track of each lot as they go through the season, and it makes it a lot easier if we know if somebody's planted or not, so we can keep track of that. So we're requesting that this year as well. Other records and reporting that's required throughout the year. Of course, the lot report, which is similar to a crop notebook, and it's maintained in your records until we come out and do an inspection, or if it's requested at another time. For an agriculture hemp crop yield seed permit holder, still the distribution and sales report for viable transactions. So seed, cuttings, prop yields, anything along those lines would fall under that distribution and sales report then. Then the annual report, which is a basic summary of that includes the total acres planted, harvested, or destroyed. And then instructions are provided that for each fall. Excuse me. And based on statute, you need to maintain those records for 3 years after the activity. So 2020 activity records need to be maintained through 2023. With regards to pesticide use on hemp, EPA has approved 49 products as of December of last year. There's a link here for it, and we should have a link on our additional resources page too, I believe, or it's under our registered producers page, one of those two pages. All the products and the channels of trade in Missouri must be registered by Missouri Department of Agriculture. So you can check with the link here, which is our Mo Plant system, to check to see if it's been registered in Missouri. The number that are registered with the EPA do not necessarily correspond with the number registered by MDA, because it's up to those companies to register those pesticides with the Missouri Department of Agriculture's Pesticide Control Bureau. MU Extension did publish a list in late fall last year. There's a link for it there in the presentation as well. And that list was looking at just the EPA registered products that were also registered in Missouri. And I think there were about 25 or somewhere in that neighborhood that were registered in Missouri at this time. Again, inspections and audits that occur. So minimum of 1 inspection per 3-year term. So we'll select our producers throughout the year. We'll schedule an appointment, usually 1 to 2 weeks in advance. We'll come out to review records, do a crop inspection if there's a crop in the ground. If we're in an area that we've been to you before in the past, it may be we stop by and while we're in the neighborhood, just because try to get as many inspections done in a day as we can that's feasible. Some reminders on compliance sampling. So once your crop approaches harvest time, you'll have to have it sampled for compliance. Each lot, again, being a group of plants, the same variety or strain grown in continuous areas, must be sampled and tested separately. Each of those samples is comprised of several individual cuttings from a random selection of many plants to form a representative composite sample. That's a minimum of 6 plants throughout that lot will need to be selected for. Once the compliance sample is collected, the harvest of all plants within that lot can begin immediately, but must be completed within 15 days. If there are any plants remaining after the 15th day, the remaining plants are then redefined as a new lot and be resampled and tested separately. Again, a certified sampler is required to pull those samples for you. For testing laboratories, producer may select any testing laboratory that meets the requirements. So a DEA registered laboratory or ISO 17025 accreditation are required. That's part of our state plan. USDA, they need to meet those USDA reporting requirements as well. And then any testing requirements that are established by USDA. We do encourage you to find a laboratory that meets your business needs. It may be an in-state lab, or may be an out-state lab. At this time, we're not aware of any labs that are currently testing for hemp in Missouri. A little bit of reminder on compliance testing factors then. Again, we're looking at 0.3% total THC. That's going to be the combination of both Delta-9, THC, and THCA. The lab results may end up having a potential THC, which they're doing the calculation of Delta-9 plus the 87.7% of the THCA, or it may be directly measured using decarboxylation. And so it'll be a decarboxylated Delta-9 number. Again, as a reminder, there is a measurement of uncertainty that's allowed. So that's a lab calculated error. It'll be similar to a margin of error. So that'll, you need to have that on your certificates of analysis as well. And that does help out if you're cutting it close. And in this graph, many of you have seen this before. This is just kind of what we're looking at if we're looking at that measurement of uncertainty. Lots A1, in this particular example, is just about, tests above the 0.35, but that measurement of uncertainty is about a 0.06. So it puts it at a 0.29 to 0.41% range, which would be a compliant lot. This lot A2 in this example is about a 0.25. Again, with that 0.06 on there, it's about a 0.19 to 0.31. Again, because it falls below, includes that 0.3% or less acceptable hemp THC level, it's a compliant lot. Then lot A3 in this particular case is about a 0.5. You put that measurement of uncertainty on there, and it still does not fall below that 0.3. So in this particular case, this lot A3 would be a non-compliant lot, would fall under our destruction protocol. Compliant test results. You need to submit a compliant test result within 30 days to the program. So that's at reporting.hemp@mda.mo.gov. Once it's a non-viable, so you've harvested, it may enter the channels of commerce, and it's no longer regulated by the Department of Agriculture's hemp program anymore. You do want to note that products themselves may be regulated by other programs, agencies, or entities, depending on their use. So if you do have questions, we may have a contact for you to refer to either Department of Health or another agency or entity that may also regulate that product. For non-compliant lots, so that's going to be anything that's greater than a 0.3% total THC with that measurement of uncertainty calculated into it, similar to the lot A3 in the example. Those test results do need to come to the department within 3 days of your receipt. The producer may request for a lab to retest the sample that's already in their possession, in the laboratory's possession. Post-harvest sampling is not going to be permitted at this time. If no retest is requested or a retest is also non-compliant, the destruction process begins. This happens through certified mail. There is a conversation with producers either by phone or email prior to that point. So everybody's in the clear or in the information category as to what's going on. And I try to make that short and sweet for you, Dr. Gonzalez. I know you got limited time. So again, if there's any questions, you can always email us at hempprogram@mda.mo.gov.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
I think this is a good time to ask questions. This stays on a few minutes before we go to the panel. Somebody in the room has a specific question for Alan. It will be pressed right now for him to answer. Let's see what is in the chat.
I got a question. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I have a question regarding how you would sample. So for this past season, I grew just one variety. But for the upcoming season, I'm planning on growing 3 to 4, but it'll all be within the same indoor space. So would each different cultivar be its own individual lot, despite being in the same building? Because they could all vary in terms of compliance.
Yeah, each of those, because they're a different variety, would be counted as a lot. And so you would identify the GPS coordinates for the building. When you send in your planting report, might send in a like a diagram of your greenhouse facility, and which tables would be listed as. If you're looking at cherry wine as your variety, then that'd be maybe table 1 is lot 1 with your cherry wine on it, and so on and so forth throughout that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Anybody else? Okay, very good. Now let's go to present the people who will be in the panel. We have 3 farmers. Let me show you here my screen again. Well, we are going to have this panel to tell about these concerns. We have right now 2 sources of information. We have the current situation, how farmers perceive or how they grow hemp this season in Missouri, based on market, based on financial support, based on technical issues with all kind of many people. Pest, people mention also weather. Weather is a big issue. I didn't put it there, but a lot of people provide that feedback. Well, the Misuriken industry leadership is very important here because we have farmers who are going to share their concerns about where we need to go as an industry, or how we can go there, like how we can work together as an industry, state, education, and farmers to bring the industry to be protagonists in this at the national level, say that. So to talk about that, we have here Rick Kreklo. He used Tal. He is a farmer. He's from the central Missouri area. And also we have Taylor Morgan. Are you here, Taylor? Can you hear me? Well, Taylor was going to come into the meeting today. I don't know if he is still here or not. What about you, Trey Wilson? You here? Yeah, you're there. Yes, I am. Sorry. Well, let's start with presenting each one of you, and then everybody in the room will hear your experience, your concerns, and your ideas about how we can bring a more profitable hemp industry and with less risk for farmers. Let's start with Rick.
Awesome. Well, just first, thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, for putting this all together. And I'm thankful for getting the opportunity to speak here, especially being a new farmer with not much experience. I think it's great to still have a chance to share concerns and ideas, I think, that could possibly be discussed and maybe implemented down the road to help Missouri farmers. I guess to start off, my biggest concerns center around how to best minimize the risks that Missouri hemp farmers face, while at the same time creating real and achievable economic opportunity within the state. And personally, I feel that the best solution is a transformative one. But just kind of to give a little background, I'm going to discuss kind of the what, why, and how to what I think could possibly be something to help this industry, or actually to help actually transform it into an industry. But hemp is obviously a new, old crop, really, here in Missouri. And I feel we all are, at least I do, have a lot to learn about how to best cultivate it. And I feel that's hard enough on its own. But as the rules stand now, growing hemp here in Missouri is an incredibly risky venture for farmers. And to be honest, I think it's an unnecessary risk right now. I feel this risk can stem from a number of different reasons. First that comes to mind is unstable and unreliable genetics. Even when farmers do practice due diligence when sourcing those from different companies, there's uncontrollable environmental conditions that quickly lead to unpredictable THC spikes. And that's even with weekly testing. And that's something that I personally saw in this past season that was kind of tough to work around and actually led to the failure of one of my lots. And additionally, even large fluctuations can exist in the same lot, even due to something as simple as how field slope and water settles and this stuff like that. But again, I think it kind of comes back around to the main point that farmers do everything within their power, even exactly right, and still fail. And I think this is a huge problem. What it does is it places undue burden, creates a severe adverse economic impact. When you consider the investment of time, fuel, equipment repair, upkeep, seed costs, fertilizer, etc., cultivating this crop, you stand to lose a lot. And I'm sure everybody is aware that at one point in time, was a leader in hemp production, and it's a plant that is something that can be used in a wide variety, a number of industries, despite its popularity for its medical uses, and kind of where it got most popular was using it for CBD, right? That's the thing. But it's so much more than that. It's the byproduct of creating oils. Hemp cake can be used as animal feed, right? And it's shown that using that can also offset the estrogenic effects that can arise from a heavy soy diet. And ultimately, this means fewer antibiotics and hormones going into our livestock and eventually into our food. Utilized as a dietary supplement for people, can be used in construction. It can be used in the manufacturing process of automobiles, boats, airplanes even. It's widely known for its use in textiles. Recently, it's even been seeing use as a potential biodegradable plastic in the food and beverage industry. So it's more than just CBD, even though everybody might take a different approach on what they want to cultivate and how they cultivate it for what specific use. Multi-billion-dollar opportunity. And I think it's just waiting for those who are forward thinking enough to capitalize on it. And I kind of come back to the thought of why can't Missouri be that leader? And what is stopping us from doing that? And and this is why I kind of talk about this being a transformative solution and not necessarily arguing about languages and different laws and what Missouri defines as hemp and marijuana and what USDA, how they define it. But what I see as a possible solution forward, and this I think would put Missouri on the map nationally, is if we exercise the powers that our state possesses, create its own laws and regulations, and this through special dispensation, right? This is kind of what you've seen with cannabis legalization in a number of other states. I feel that we can extend our allowable THC limit to 1% total THC. And again, states have their own authority to form their own laws that govern their own people, right? And doing this, I think, not only solves all the issues, I mean, I guess not entirely, but solves a number of issues that do place undue burden on farmers and that can result in severe economic impact. Again, I think the biggest thing is we would place ourselves at the front of the line in an emerging industry that can bring about economic into this opportunity into the state, right? Actually achievable opportunity. Like what was stated before, I mean, you look at the reports, and most farmers this year just broke even or even lost money. And we're still figuring out ways that we can make this a profitable crop. And, you know, additionally, this shift to 1% total THC content, I think, align Missouri into what is rapidly gaining momentum as becoming an international standard. A number of countries have already adopted. And I find that to be a real game changer. It moves this beyond just what's happening here in the US. And I've just pulled a law from within Australia that I think serves as, at least what I feel, serves as a good example for kind of sharing that risk. Farmers, at least, you know, just have a chance to still have a compliant crop despite things that might be ultimately their control. I'll go ahead and read that here. It follows. Industrial hemp must not exceed 1% THC in the leaves and flowering heads and may be cultivated under license from certified hemp seed. Hemp seed must be seed harvested from a plant with a THC concentration in its leaves and flowering heads of more than 0.5%. The difference recognizes that the leaves and flowering heads of plants grown using certified hemp seed than the 0.5% THC. And I think this is an important part of the law right here, because environmental conditions beyond the grower's control. I think the law does a good job of protecting your farmers, protecting those that are choosing to cultivate this crop, to make it less like a gamble and more like an investment. And again, in the past 2020 election, every state with cannabis legislation up for a vote passed. And you've kind of seen this once demonized plant that has been getting cultivated for centuries throughout the world is finally getting a fair shake after decades of government outreach, disinformation on the plant. And again, I think the way we can only protect farmers, but again, make Missouri nationally relevant and a national leader, is for Missouri to stand independently and create our own laws for our own hemp production. I think what we would see is other states would inevitably follow us into the race that we would already be many laps into. And again, I think it's important, and kind of we ask ourselves is, why can't we take transformative action that would accomplish all these goals and protect our investments? But again, I think it's important that we have the opportunity to discuss ideas like this, again, between cultivators here in the state. I think it's one thing to just have these ideas, but it's another thing for us to discuss and so our voices are heard on the matter. Because I think ultimately it will be difficult to get things like this with the view. Again, it is, as I said, admittedly, it would be a transformative but I think it would be something that would not only help farmers find ways to make this crop profitable, but also help us kind of place ourselves at the front of the line with what I think is going to be a massive industry moving forward in the coming years. So just my thoughts on the matter. Not everyone's always right, but at least it's how I personally feel about it. I think we can actually make something of this and actually create something that is achievable for Missouri farmers. So thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Ricky. I think you mentioned very good points about where we should go as an industry. And those specific points about rising the THC level from 0.3 to 0.1 and tie that with agricultural policy makers here in Missouri, get connected with the people who decide on regulations beyond Alan, that will be a good step to go forward. I feel like we are exploring very good ideas. Let's hear from Trey what he wants to share with us. Trey Wilson. He grew 2 crops of hemp in high tunnels in 2020. And he very much he does is in greenhousing and hydroponic system. So it will be good to have his perspective from his operation side and see what we can collect from him.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Trey. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I do want to tell you, Rick, you're exactly right. The THC level has got to be raised. And how we do that, I don't know. But you're right, that is something that does need to be fixed because the percentages are too low. And Alan, I know that you've been told that over and over again. So we're not telling you anything new. But the rates that it's at now are way too low. I noticed Jeff Limbaugh was on here too, so he may be able to speak about this some. But as far as field grown seed and fiber, that's even high for a seed and fiber, much less if you want to go down to grow CBD hemp. That's really my main concern as far as something that we can do immediately to help out the hemp industry. The only other thing that needs to be helped out as far as the hemp industry in Missouri is just infrastructure. You know, we have to get the buildings and the machinery in here to process hemp, both for CBD, but also for the seed and fiber side. And that's just going to take time and millions of dollars of investment. You know, that's because, I mean, let's face it, the seed and fiber side is probably going to be 99% of the future of Missouri's hemp. You know, it won't be CBD. It will be field grown hemp like it was in the 20s. So that's going to be Missouri's 2 biggest problems, or the 2 biggest problems that Missouri has right now. Yes, Missouri has perfect growing climate, I believe. So well, we know we can grow it. It's just a matter of getting it processed. And so those are really my 2 major concerns for Missouri. And so when I was asked to speak, I was told it was going to be a question and answer. So I don't have a speech written like Rick did. That was excellent, Rick. You did a great job. But maybe we could just open up to questions and answers. Does anybody have any questions for me as a hydroponic grower or an indoor grower? Or
Yeah. Well, let me introduce somebody here who may tell us. He is David Millington. He worked at Lincoln University as an extension representative for the Hemp Institute. And he may have good feedback about your points. Are you here, David?
Yes, I'm here, Dr. Gonzalez.
Okay. Do you have something to share in this regards?
Repeat the question, please. I'm
wondered
in the middle of going on at the same time.
Oh, sorry. I wondered
Go ahead.
As a hemp extension specialist, what is the concern you collect from farmers in the field? Can you share some of your feedback with us?
Yeah, most of the farm, I'm a certified industrial sampler and got on a lot of farms this year. And by and large, most farmers did an excellent job that had some farming experience. Where we saw the most failures were people that had absolutely no farming experience trying to grow hemp. One farm in particular, they didn't do any fertilization, they didn't do any irrigation. So their crop didn't turn out too well. But most people that understand either growing horticulturally, such as small fruits and vegetables, and understand fertilization and irrigation and all that, or even the larger crop farmers I was with, did, by and large, an excellent crop that they had. One of the things that I always encouraged the people that I was working with, let's take for an example, I had a farmer that had 5 acres, and I asked him to break it into 5 1-acre plots. You know, I would have had to take 30 samples off of 5 acres or 5 individual samples of 6. But my purpose was in case one lot went hot, he didn't lose the entire field, because we don't know how this crop is going to perform as we go across the different soil types. You know, what happens if some of it's planted on a clay ridge? Maybe there's an area where water has stood on it. These different things that we didn't know what would influence the THC content. Getting back to the THC content, I do know that Senator Rand Paul has introduced or is in the process of introducing raising the limit to 1. I don't know where that stands. It was just something that I read that he was working on. So hopefully that will come down the pike, because I'm also one that believes it needs to be raised to 1, because you still can't get high at 1% THC. That's kind of some of my observations that I've seen this year.
Good, David. Thank you. Just to let you know, guys, on the drone farmers, David, he worked as an extension specialist for hemp at Lincoln University. So you have any issue related with regulation, with information, with forms, with applications, he will be able to help in the field, right, David?
Yes, I'm always here for assistance, and love to work with farmers in any way I can.
Thank you. We had a announcement here at the chat. It's from Nathan. To everybody, I know it's everybody read it, but he said he is looking for somebody to work with in a partnership. He owns 60,000 square foot on roof on the warehouse. He wants to know if somebody is interested. There is another, Megan, to everybody, question for Trey. Did you have any THC spike problems with your hydroponically grown crop?
Yeah, Megan, I did not. But I grew in 2019 with Three Rivers. And so I had a little bit of experience before 2020 came around. And so when 2020 came around, I knew what to look out for, you know, and so I did not have that problem at all. But like I said, it wasn't my first go around. You know, what caused the TH spike, from what I've researched, a lot of it's in the genetics. I've read too many conflicting reports whether the THC spike is caused by over or under fertilization, or overwatering or underwatering, or, you know, any mismanagement. I can't say that that is what causes that. I think a lot of it has to do with genetics. Now that's all way over my head. You know, I'm certainly not the smartest guy in the room today, but I know I have not had that problem personally. And I know another hydroponic farmer, and he didn't have that problem either. And so I don't know if that was just, we both had good genetics, or if that was, or if we just dodged the bullet. I did sample really early, and I would take samples weekly and send them off to watch the levels. But I think a lot of that's just doing your due diligence and making sure that you're watching for that to happen. But good question. Any more questions? Anybody else have any other thoughts?
Did field growers see any difference in the corn earworm by variety? There's some research that shows the different terpenes can be more attractive to corn earworm than other varieties.
Yeah, I think, can I talk? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm the entomologist here. So this past season that we did our research, we found that the CBD varieties had more of the corn earworm, but I'm not aware as to whether the differences in the terpene level will either attract them or not. But it's something that we think that could be a possibility because insects are attracted to different types of volatiles, from the plant. And if you look at the damage that is caused by the corn earworm, those that are observed critically, it's mainly within the flowers, So it means that there's something there that they really like, because we had a few plants that male plants, and then some of the fiber plants, I did not see any of the insects there. So it means that with the CBD variety, there is something there that really either attracts them and then allows them to feed and also develop. So it's one of the things that I'll probably try to look at, whether those terpenes could either have a fitness cost in terms of their development, whether they can develop well but once the insect finds that particular variety or the plant as a good resource, it means that there's something that we should really look into and then find out. So that is my response to that question. Did I answer it, or maybe?
Is that a good response for you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. I have seen some research with somebody. Sorry about that. Some research with the breeder that we're using, that certain varieties are less attracted to corn earworm, but those are the varieties that are generally low in different terpenes.
What, somebody has another question or for the panelists? Or well, I had a question for Ricky. What do you think will be your next steps to move forward on the hemp industry in Missouri from your perspective? Just share one or two. I don't know if you hear me. Ricky, are you there?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. What was the question?
Oh, it's a question for you to get back to the panel. What would you share some of your guidance that you think where the hemp industry in Missouri should go on the current legislation we have? Like, what will be the next steps for changing or for making Missouri hemp more profitable and less risky for farmers?
Yeah, well, again, I think ultimately it does kind of circle back to taking the appropriate steps to raise those THC limits. I think everybody's seems like a commonly agreed upon point. But I think that would probably be something that's more legislative, rather than just things that can be easily changed. I don't know what because of the USDA regulations and the MDA rules as they apply now, I think from my understanding, is the rules that Missouri had to submit obviously has to coincide with the USD regulations that were put out. So it would be something that would have to come from Missouri law that would supersede that. Now, I'm not incredibly familiar with the exact process. It would probably be something that would have to go through the legislative branch here, not something that can be easily changed, but I think it's important for people to reach out to state representatives that actually kind of have the power to make those changes. Because again, nobody knows a problem exists until you communicate what your concerns are and the issues that do face constituents. But if anybody has any other recommendations that might be a little more educated on that process, I'd be more than eager to hear that, because it would, again, it's something we can all have our different ideas for what we can do for ways that we can solve problems that we all face, but without a real plan to try and enact that change, everything's just kind of dreaming. So I'd be more than willing to hear if anybody else has recommendations on steps that can be taken. Maybe Alan, you might actually be a good source to let us know exactly where we should voice those concerns, where they might get to people that actually have the ability to potentially change those rules.
Yeah, well, with regards to state legislation, of course, it falls under our state legislature. However, if you're looking at, I understand the concerns on wanting to move up to 1%. Federally, though, it's still 0.3%. So if you had a 1% crop in Missouri, that doesn't necessarily mean it would be able to go outside the state of Missouri and still meet federal requirements.
Yes.
So I think you're looking at something on the federal level would have to change. I think Dave mentioned earlier that David Middleton mentioned earlier about Rand Paul's legislation that was filed in December. I don't know if it carries over into the current legislative session, since it was filed into the 116th Congress versus the 117th Congress currently in session. So we'll just have to see what comes down. I did see a note in an article this morning that the Office of Budget and Management at DC did finally conclude their review of the federal final hemp rules that USDA filed last fall. We'll probably be seeing something show up on the Federal Register in the next week or so. So we'll see if that has any additional guidance or change from what the interim final rule was that we had to meet in order to have a state plan approval.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And I definitely agree with your point that, again, the federal laws do define it by that 0.3% THC allowance. But it's more so, I think it's in terms of until everything catches up with where I think the THC allowance laws are going, it would give, the way I see it is, if you're still interested in having a crop that you can market across state lines, obviously you shoot to still stay below that federal allowable limit. But what that 1% mark does, at least until the rest of the country would catch up, would allow you to at least market your product within state lines rather than wastefully having to destroy a crop. I don't know all the logistics and the kind of the small things that go into whether that's a realistic thing, right? But at least if I'm looking at it personally, I would much rather have that bumper, right? To, okay, say I came in at 0.37% total THC, is, again, it's something that would protect me, not from having to destroy an entire crop, to, okay, now I can only market within state lines. But again, the reason I'm pushing for that is it would be a transformative law. And if you look at the momentum that cannabis legislation in general, whether cannabis and what's defined as marijuana and cannabis is what's defined as hemp. I mean, if you look at kind of the general trend of where all of those laws are going, I mean, it's not outlandish to say that potentially federal cannabis legalization could be coming up within 5 years, potentially. And then I think that can also see a potential impact on hemp allowance laws as well. So I don't think it is something that's too far in the future. But again, placing those laws ahead of time would allow the state to set up its own, I guess, best practices and methods for cultivating 1% legal crops. And at the same time, if you're wanting to market your product nationally, you understand that you would have to still comply with what the federal law is if that's leaving Missouri state lines.
we are recording this presentation, so all this information, we will analyze it in a qualitative way so we can get something out and provide feedback. But yeah, they are very good points, Ricky. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question if we have time.
Yeah.
So this is probably directed towards Alan or other indoor farmers, but we're having a challenge keeping up with some of the lot reports and planting reports because we're indoor farming, and we're constantly taking clones, destroying clones, throwing new plants in flower, and there's this rotation of plants, a constant rotation of plants that are going in and out of, like veg clone and flower. Alan, do you see any changes upcoming with the lot reports, or what's the other indoor farmers' experience with that over the last year and I guess going forward in 2021?
Yeah, Sean, I appreciate that. As I mentioned in the presentation earlier, we did change the name on that from the lot identification form to a lot report. We were using about a 7-day window for guidance last year, and now we're kind of reevaluating that based on some of those challenges we saw from growers dealing with multiple lots coming in and having to do revisions on such a regular basis. That we are looking at more once it's put into final production. If you're looking at a propagule setup, it's something, if you want to give Aaron a call, it's something that we can probably get something a little more organized that's more specific to what your needs. I know we have some other indoor growers that are doing something very similar, so it makes it a little more challenging. So we'll try to work with you the best we can.
Yeah, I've talked to Aaron a little bit too, and I've heard other farmers define it as they basically put in planting dates whenever it goes into flower, and that doesn't seem correct to me, but I'd like that further defined. If I only need to update the planting once I know that I'm going to flower it, we have mothers that are sitting around, right, that will never go into flower. We only use for clones, right? So do I report those if I know that they're never going to be, they're never going to be a finished product, or, further definition could help out a little bit on that.
Yeah, and I think Aaron tried to put a little bit more guidance on that together, but when we do want to keep track of a lot of mothers, even though they're going to be in vegetative state, but maybe one that you're identifying as on that planting report, the variety information, the location of where, because they're probably not going to move anywhere. And then in the description that it's a set of mother plants, and that's kind of where they're going to be statically. And we'll know we won't be expecting to have a certificate of analysis coming in on that particular one for being harvested. However, the real goal is on the planting report, and I think the guidance is a little clearer this year, is we really want to know where that final location is. Yeah, you may have started propagules on bench 1 in this location, and you're going to end up moving it into, greenhouse 4. Where is that final location going to be? So that'll be what we're looking at for the planting report. And I believe the way the guidance is written that you'll move those propagules into greenhouse 4, and that'll be the planting date then, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. See, we have the same GPS location. This is a 30,000 square foot warehouse. So it's strictly indoor, moving from room A to room B sort of thing. So I've only been putting GPS coordinates of my building, essentially, because they never leave the facility. It just moves from our clone to veg to flower.
And that sounds like that works fine for us. Ultimately, we want to keep track of some of those if they're moving large distances, or if you're dealing with an indoor facility or an indoor facility that you're propagating on, and then you move it to the back 40 of your 3,000 acre farm, and somebody calls highway patrol and says, hey, there's this guy producing marijuana in his back 40. And it's easier for us to track down what's going on.
Right, that makes sense. Okay. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Elijah, it seems like you are muted.
Right, thank you, Dr. Patel. Somebody else has more concerns to share in this table, in this forum, like your experience, something that made you frustrated when you were growing your hemp. There in the survey, we collect very good feedback about some farmers just don't want to grow more hemp next season, maybe. His situation stays the same. And this is a good opportunity to share our concerns and let other people hear us. And also, since this is a recording event, we will be able to share this thing with the people who are taking the decisions to move this industry forward. They may see it, they may know, but this is a good voice for us to get to the points we want to go.
Can you email your slide presentation to us so we could have those numbers easily? And
Yes.
then also the contacts for all the individuals at Lincoln University?
Yes, I will create a group from these participants and from the people who registered to the event. We are going to share all this information with you. Also, I put in the chat a survey. Short survey is a evaluation for this event. The event is not over yet, but we want to let you know that if you had a chance, you can start responding that form. And I'm going to put it again in the chat so you can click it and use respond to questions. And there is other stuff like in the chat. I have been reading different messages from different participants. If you go to the chat, you will be able to see very good information other people are sharing. I just want to see somebody has more questions in the panel, more observations, more from Lincoln University personnel, more from Missouri State representative for the Hemp Industry Program. Alan, you have something more to say?
Dr. Gonzalez, I think this is a good time to just remind folks, if you do have questions throughout the growing season or about reporting or what's required, please give us a call or drop us an email. Again, email is usually the best way to get a hold of us at the hempprogram@mda.mo.gov. It's always best to ask before there's a problem rather than after there's a problem that we can't really take care of after the fact. So I'd rather have a call before there's a problem than later on.
I do have a question. What all is Lincoln University planning on doing this upcoming year? Are you all planning on doing some outdoor trials or indoor trials, or what's Lincoln's forecast looks like? What does it look like?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Is Dr. Babu here, Dr. Patel?
I do not see him.
Do you have feedback for that question?
Well, I can tell on behalf of me, my program, what I will be doing. So again, I'm a plant pathologist, so I will be testing certain varieties against certain diseases. So we can check which variety performs well against some of the important diseases that you reported in this survey. For example, botrytis or powdery mildew and Pithium damping off. And then onward, next year, we can report that result to you guys. So you have a better idea which variety is good for resistance against this disease, as well as how they perform considering the seed production or CBD production. So you can take best decision on that. I do not know what is Babu's plan right now. So I don't know if Clement has any.
I do.
Yeah, I think I have an idea as to what. Okay, David, if you're on, go ahead.
Yeah. I've been working with Dr. Babu, and he's looking at planting 10 different varieties of CBD or for flower, fiber, and for seed. And we're going to plant those in probably 5 to 6 different locations across the state to gather data points to see how a different variety performs from the boot heel to North Missouri to Central Missouri, different soil types and all that. To once again, genetics is a horrible problem in the industry. There's no stability in it. And I know he's going to be working a lot on a breeding program. He's collected a lot of feral hemp, and he's doing a lot of genomic mapping right now and starting a breeding program to work on stabilizing the genetics. So that's one area. Should be operational this fall in order to test for THC and terpenes and heavy metals and other things. The equipment's in the lab. It's just not been calibrated to that point to do it yet. But there will be several field days across the state. Everywhere that we do a plot research, we will try to hold a field day in that region. So that will be upcoming. Another thing that we're going to be doing as part with the Show Me Hemp Association on March 1st is we will be participating in their conference and bringing more information and being available to answer any more questions at that time.
Dr. Clement, what do you plan for next year on pest control management?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to evaluate a few products that has been approved by EPA, so, and other, biopesticides, at this point, those are the ones that we think that we could possibly get our hands on. So that is what we have been doing. And also, we have 2 systems, organic and then inorganic, or conventional. We'll try to look at the insect spectrum, do some survey to report on, give us, some idea as to which of the insects are major pests, minor pests, and then occasional pests, at least to know which ones to concentrate on control, how to control them. So that's basically what I'll be doing in entomology.
Very good. There is some questions here, and David brought to the point like there are other hemp events coming in the future. So I think Megan was here. I don't know if she's still here, but if you are there, Megan, you want to share something about that?
Yeah, hey all. Yeah, I'm with the Show Me Hemp Association, and David graciously mentioned our upcoming conference. Lincoln will be involved and have a presentation during that. And in regards to the legislation and the THC conversation that was earlier, we will be having on March 1st an evening reception, and it's going to be through the One Voice for Ag movement, and there are going to be politicians there. So it would be beneficial if any of you guys would like to participate either in person with limited space or virtually. So that'll be March 1st. And I do believe that in order to move the hemp industry forward, it's going to take a lot of communication and a lot of effort from everybody. And thank you for putting this together, Elazar.
Somebody's asking, where is that being held? Where it's going to be?
Say that? Oh, it's going to be in Jefferson City at the DoubleTree Hilton, starting 8 o'clock in the morning, registration. The virtual portion will be available, and it's just $35 for a ticket. And that'll be for, actually, that includes the MOA conference as well, the Missouri Organic Association conference, which is the 2nd and 3rd at the same location.
Good, thank you. Final remarks, where we are going next? I think we, as a education institution, as a state manager, and as a farmers, in which will work together. All these events are opportunities to connect with each other and go in that direction that Ricky brought to the point. I was reading another comment on the chat that Kentucky has a very high level of THC for producers. So it's a matter of looking ahead what other states are doing, how the legislation is working there, and why we have these differences. And I guess as a hemp industry, we should be connected, or we are connected in all the states. Like, I don't see the fair part of having one state having higher than other states. And we are selling, the market for hemp is very much all over around the world. And it is a very disadvantageous situation for farmers who are constrained to produce a specific level and also investing on it, because it's not only to produce the level. There is a very good comment that somebody in the surveys made, like his wish was to know by looking the plan on the field, where is that 3% of the THC level, how we can find out that situation. You know, it's like we are learning, we are moving forward, and yeah, we need to keep moving forward together. I just want to thank you, if you don't have more questions, for being here and for responding to the survey, to many farmers, and for participating in this webinar, in this panel. We're looking forward to have more events in the future and keep you informed about what's going on with the industry, and more opportunities to learn, and whatever it is in your concerns, please communicate with us. We are going to provide you feedback by email. So you have this presentation and also the connections here at Lincoln and at the state of Missouri, and other people and other farmers who are living the same situation than you are right now. But with that, I want to thanks everybody and have a very nice day.